The little-known events that led to women's suffrage after World War I. Behind every great moment in history, countless untold stories are waiting to be discovered. Yeah, you've got it. Women's suffrage after World War I can't solely be attributed to well-known activists and movements. There were other factors at play as well. Hello, friends. Well, if you often fantasize about the past and really want to know about the history of ancient civilizations, then you're in the right place. Welcome to Unthinkable Past, a channel better known for dishing up the outlandish ancient traditions of all times. Well, it's the year 1918. The Great War has just come to an end, and the world is starting to rebuild itself. But something else is also happening. Yes, amidst the chaos and upheaval of the post-war period, a quiet revolution is brewing. Women across the world are demanding their right to vote and participate in politics, and they're not going to take no for an answer. But what you may not know is that the fight for women's suffrage wasn't just a story of well-known activists and movements. Many little-known events played a crucial role in achieving this monumental milestone in women's history. In this video, we'll be uncovering these stories and exploring the unexpected events that led to women gaining the right to vote after World War I. Just get ready to dive into history and discover the untold tales that helped shape the world we live in today. So, how did it all start? Well, the right of women to vote and stand for election is basically referred to as women's suffrage, and the movement for women's suffrage dates back to the mid-19th century. But it gained significant momentum in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Women, in fact, had limited rights and political power at the time, and the suffrage movement aimed to change that by campaigning for women's right to vote and participate in politics. The movement started in the United States, where the first Women's Rights Convention was held in Seneca Falls, New York, in 1848. Organized by women's rights activists, including Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott. During the convention, they drafted the Declaration of Sentiments, outlining their demands for women's rights, which also included the right to vote. Other countries followed suit as well, including the United Kingdom, where Emmeline Pankhurst and her daughters founded the Women's Social and Political Union, WSPU, in 1903. The WSPU turned out to be a militant suffrage organization that utilized direct action tactics, such as hunger strikes and window smashing, to draw attention to their cause. For your further information, let me tell you here that International Women's Day, which is now celebrated annually on March 8th, has its roots in the suffrage movement. The first International Women's Day was celebrated in 1911, and it was a day for women to rally for their rights and demand greater gender equality. The celebration helped raise awareness of women's suffrage and inspired women around the world to continue fighting for their rights. Let's now get to the little-known events that led to women's suffrage after World War I. As you all know, the Russian Revolution of 1917 was a major turning point in world history. But you know what? It had a significant impact on the suffrage movement as well. The new Bolshevik government, which came to power after the revolution, introduced a range of reforms aimed at promoting gender equality, including women's suffrage. This decision to grant women the right to vote became a significant step forward and a way to mobilize and engage women in the revolutionary struggle. It also inspired suffragists in other countries and created a sense of international solidarity among women's rights activists. And what about the role of women in wartime propaganda? Well, during World War I, women were called upon to take on new roles in the workforce and support the war effort. This led to a shift in the public perception of women and their capabilities, as they proved themselves capable of taking on jobs previously reserved for men. At the same time, governments used propaganda to promote the idea that women's contribution to the war effort was crucial and should be recognized. This helped break down stereotypes about women and their roles in society. Moreover, women's participation in the war effort helped demonstrate their political and economic value, and it led to increased demands for political representation. Women's suffrage movements around the world, in fact, used the argument that if women could contribute to the war effort, they should be granted the right to vote and participate in politics. Moving on, did you know the Spanish flu pandemic also paved the way for women's suffrage? Yeah, and don't be surprised. Women's organizations, in fact, played a crucial role in providing medical care and support during the pandemic, which highlighted their competence and compassion. This, in turn, helped change public perceptions of women's capabilities. The flu pandemic also drew attention to the importance of public health, and many women's organizations and activists campaigned for better healthcare and sanitation practices. These efforts helped improve the health and well-being of communities, and also demonstrated the importance of a woman's voice and perspective in public policy. Coming to the Women's Peace Conference. Yes, in 1915, a group of women from different countries came together in The Hague, Netherlands, to call for an end of World War I. The conference led to the creation of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. which became an important platform for promoting women's suffrage and other feminist causes. Then, the Silent Sentinels were a group of women who picketed the White House in Washington, D.C. during Woodrow Wilson's presidency, demanding the right to vote. They stood silently holding signs for months, enduring arrest, imprisonment, and physical violence. Their peaceful protest, however, drew a lot of attention. Likewise, during World War I, women in the UK played a vital role in the war effort, as already mentioned, by taking on jobs that had previously been reserved for only men. One of these jobs was working on the land, which was essential for producing food for the country. The Women's Land Army was formed to organize and train these women, and it quickly became a significant force in the war effort. The efforts of the Women's Land Army led to a shift in public opinion to recognize the importance of women's contributions to society. However, there were many other little-known events as well that contributed to women's suffrage after World War I. For example, the involvement of African American women in the suffrage movement, the role of labor unions in advocating for women's rights, and the influence of women's fashion on the movement are all important, but often overlooked aspects of the story. But then what? You guys must be wondering, did they succeed? Well, despite facing significant opposition and slow progress, the suffrage movement persevered and gained increasing support over time. Women's suffrage was granted at different times across various countries, with New Zealand leading the way in 1893, followed by Australia, Finland, and Norway. The United States eventually granted women's suffrage with the 19th Amendment to the US Constitution, and that got passed in 1920. Finally, it's time to see the legacy of women's suffrage. Well, the legacy of women's suffrage, as we see, was extremely far-reaching and profound. The struggle for a woman's right to vote was a significant moment in the fight for gender equality, and it paved the way for many other social and political changes, such as it gave women a voice in politics, and it encouraged them to become more active in their communities. And today, women make up a significant portion of elected officials around the world. Secondly, the movement inspired women to demand more rights and greater equality, leading to changes in areas like education, employment, and healthcare. This really empowered women on a great scale. Then, women who'd been active in the suffrage movement often went on to become politicians and lawmakers after suffrage was achieved. They used their positions to advocate for policies that promoted gender equality and social justice, and their presence in political institutions helped change societal attitudes towards women's participation in politics. And if we talk about its historical significance, the suffrage movement was a critical moment in the history of social and political change. It is, in fact, a reminder of the power of collective action and the importance of fighting for what's right. So you see how the story of women's suffrage after World War I proved to be a testament to the power of collective action. Well, there you have it. We hope you liked this video. If you did, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel without any delay. Also, make sure you turn on those post notifications. And now it's your turn. What other stories have you heard about women's suffrage? Share them in the comments below, and let's continue to celebrate the achievements of women's rights activists throughout history. Thanks for watching Unthinkable Past. Until the next time we meet, continue learning and stay healthy. Goodbye.